I don't think this is mainly a story about authenticity saving Zarna Garg. That's the easy reading, and the episode works very hard to hand it to you. What I think it actually shows is something messier and more honest. Authenticity did not save her. A chain of brutal contingencies, a few acts of kindness, immigration, timing, talent, and an almost scary level of personal force saved her. The word authenticity comes in later, once the life has already been stitched back together and needs a philosophy attached to it. The episode's central claim is that choosing yourself, fully, defiantly, almost spiritually, can transform trauma into purpose. The evidence for that claim is Zarna's life. Her mother dies, an arranged marriage is looming. She runs, couch surfs, later immigrates, finds love through what sounds like a gloriously unhinged early internet dating ad, then lands in comedy because her kids push her toward an open mic. It's an incredible sequence, but incredible is not the same thing as explanatory. A story can be true and still be overinterpreted by the storyteller and the host. To the episode's credit, the strongest part is also the least mystical part. When Garg describes escaping the arranged marriage the day after her mother died, and when the conversation gets into couch surfing at 14, the video stops being inspirational branding and becomes something much better: evidence. Not data, obviously, but lived specifics. There's a difference between saying, "I chose myself," and saying, "I had nowhere to go, and this is how I survived." The latter has moral weight because it admits the cost. It doesn't flatter the audience with empowerment slogans. It sounds like a child improvising adulthood under duress. And the episode almost knows this. It keeps circling one detail that matters more than all the destiny talk. Her mother's legacy of kindness created a social safety net after her death. That is a much more serious idea than the show seems to realize. Not fate, not cosmic reward, social capital. The memory of a decent woman cashing out as literal shelter for her daughter. That's not a hallmark flourish. It's the mechanism. The tragedy here is that the interview keeps upgrading a material explanation into a spiritual one, as if practical dependence on other people becomes less meaningful unless it can be translated into karma and signs from the universe. The same thing happens with America. Garg's gratitude for America feels real and frankly earned. If your comparison set is a home life collapsing into coercion, America can absolutely look like a moral technology. Anonymity, mobility, reinvention, legal distance from the family script. But the episode slides from America gave me room to something broader and cleaner, as if the nation itself is the proof of destiny. That's where I start pushing back. What the story demonstrates is that certain American conditions were useful to one very specific person with a very specific temperament. It does not automatically prove the larger civilizational sermon the interview keeps hinting at. Then there's comedy, which the episode frames as destiny once the kids nudge her into it. I actually buy the emotional truth of that more than the metaphysical truth. Comedy often looks like destiny in retrospect because it's a machine for reorganizing humiliation. You take the parts of your life that made you small: family control, beauty standards, immigrant awkwardness, marriage negotiations, grief, and you make them obey timing. That's not divine design. That's revision. It's art as revenge against the original version of events. And to be fair, when Garg talks about performing without demonizing her roots for a Western audience, the episode gets unusually sophisticated. She's identifying a real market temptation. The immigrant comic who cashes checks by turning family and culture into a zoo exhibit for outsiders. That may be the smartest thing in the whole interview. Garg wants the freedom to criticize parts of Indian culture without laundering herself through a Western superiority story. Good. That is harder than the episode makes it look. Because once your act is built on cultural specificity, you are always one laugh away from giving the audience exactly what it wants. Not complexity, but confirmation that someone else's family, religion, or country is the primitive one. The video deserves praise for at least touching that tension instead of pretending cross-cultural comedy is morally neutral. But this is also where the interview starts protecting its own thesis. Garg's position on the Riyadh Comedy Festival is presented as a morally serious gamble. Go there, perform, maybe inspire women in marginalized communities. Maybe. I don't dismiss that. But the episode mostly lets that claim stand in its best possible form. It doesn't really interrogate the trade-off. When does appearing in a heavily managed cultural event function as outreach? And when does it function as borrowed legitimacy for the people staging it? You don't need a gotcha interview here. You just need one more hard question than the show is willing to ask. The religious material lands the same way for me, moving in sentiment, slippery in argument. I pray to all gods is a beautiful line because it sounds generous, porous, anti-sectarian. And as a personal philosophy, fine, keep it. But the interview quietly upgrades that private practice into a kind of wisdom claim, as though taking the best from every religion is obviously deeper than belonging to one tradition seriously enough to fight with it. That's a very modern, very affluent way of doing faith. Spiritual buffet, no fixed menu, all insight, limited obligation. Again, I'm not saying it's false. I'm saying the episode treats it as self-evidently enlightened instead of historically and psychologically specific. And yes, the relationship advice section, never ask your partner what they're thinking, briefly turns the whole thing into the most overqualified Annie at a wedding giving battlefield counsel beside the dessert table. It's funny, and it works because Garg is funny, not because the argument is especially robust. That's a recurring pattern in this episode. Charisma keeps outrunning proof. You laugh, you nod, you feel the authority of a person who has survived a lot, and before you know it, anecdote has smuggled itself into doctrine. This is where the presentation matters, but only because it affects the truth claims. The show's format is built to sanctify testimony. Long, sympathetic, confessional, emotionally padded, constantly nudging lived experience toward revelation. That can be generous. It can also blur the line between understanding a person and endorsing every framework they use to explain themselves. Mayim Bialik is a good listener here. The problem is that the listening is so affirming that contradiction rarely gets to stay in the room long enough to become analysis. So my verdict is awkwardly split. As a human document, this episode is often excellent. Garg comes off as ferociously alive, genuinely reflective, and much sharper than the self-help wrapping paper around her story. As an argument, though, the video is only partly supported. It proves that one woman survived catastrophe and made a life worth envying. It does not fully prove that authenticity, destiny, karma, or borderless spirituality are the engines that got her there. The strongest part of the story is still the least romantic one. Other people helped. Institutions mattered, talent mattered, timing mattered, and she was stubborn enough to turn damage into material without pretending the damage itself was secretly a gift. And that's the version of this channel I want to keep making. Reviews that don't just ask whether a story is moving, but whether the explanation attached to it deserves your belief. If that sounds useful, stay close. The next time a video turns survival into a sermon, we'll pull the sermon apart first.